All right, the field in Omaha is set now for the College World Series here. You want me to read all the odds here, and then I'll set you up, and you can
Yeah, only 8 teams left. Yeah, absolutely.
eight teams remain. So now, like, I've been calling it the College World Series since the start, which I guess would be like calling it the Final Four from the start of the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Just one of these things that
Yeah.
I'm going to do, and that's just like the end of it.
Right.
Texas and Stanford are your co-favorites right now at Bet Rivers. Both are 4-1. Notre Dame plus 550. Notre Dame would beat Tennessee, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Notre
In the
Dame
Super
plus
Regional, and
550.
in Tennessee too, 1, 2 out of 3.
And that's what everyone's always said. Like, winning in Tennessee in baseball is one of the hardest things to do. Notre Dame plus
Yep.
550. Arkansas, I know you like Ken, plus 550. Ole Miss plus 650. Auburn plus 700. Oklahoma plus 750. Texas A&M plus 800. These are all like huge football schools. I think that's funny, and they're all at the
Right.
final eight of
There's
the
3
college.
SEC teams in there too, which and Texas, who is like good at every sport, which makes sense, right? It's Texas. They're gonna be pretty good.
We're back. All right. So what are you thinking here now that we're heading to Omaha?
Omaha. I'm very excited for this weekend. So the tournament starts for people who have been like, oh, I've heard you guys done some college baseball. Like, where are we right now? Just like a really, really quick primer, and then there are a couple bets that I actually like for this tournament still. If you have no money involved, works just like the NCAA tournament from a basketball standpoint in terms of number of teams. Started with 64, now down to 8. This will take place at a neutral site. The way this tournament works, so if you're going to bet a team to win, just like I could see somebody who's never done this before being like, "Oh, I'm going to bet oh yeah, like give me Texas," and then Texas loses the first game, and they're like, "Oh, like I'm out," and it's like, nah, it's double elimination, so know that. It actually this round works exactly like the first round of the tournament. If you've watched any of the tournament so far, double elimination, and then the final is best out of 3. So you have double elimination, finals best out of 3. The 8 teams that are remaining, the number 1 team was Tennessee. One of the reasons why this futures market's really flat in terms of how it's priced, by flat I mean all the teams have about the same probability to win the tournament. 4-1 to 8-1 is your full spread across the 8 teams. Is that Tennessee occupied so much win probability? I don't think there was like a really strong consensus opinion necessarily on who the second, third, fourth, and fifth best teams were, and some of those have been eliminated. Oregon State, most notably last night, who lost. They were the third choice to win before the tournament. So that's kind of where we are right now. Big teams left, teams that have had some postseason success previously. Texas is one of the winningest schools in the history of this tournament. Stanford's won it. I think a couple of the SEC teams have at least got to the final before. I'm not sure if either of them have won. But yeah, like you mentioned, big time schools. And from a betting standpoint, if you follow the show, we're going into this tournament or into this final round with some stuff that looks really good. So our strategy at the start of the tournament was fade Tennessee and try to pick as many teams as possible that are priced well to do so with. We ended up betting 5 over the course of the tournament, 4 before the tournament started and 1 before the last round or before last weekend. The 4 we bet before the tournament: Oregon State, who just got eliminated last night; Stanford, who is the co-favorite at 4-1; Texas, who is the other co-favorite now at 4-1. East Carolina, who lost to Texas. They were always going to play each other. So we have Texas and Stanford through from the original 4, which is great. We have the 2 favorites. And then who are on opposite sides. They could play in the final also, which is awesome. And then we added Arkansas last week. And that's probably where I'll spend most of the rest of the time, honestly. So we bet Arkansas. They were 30-1 prior to the start of play last weekend. They're now plus 550. A lot of that is because Tennessee was eliminated from the tournament. If you have, I also liked Arkansas in their regional. They swept North Carolina at their place. If you have no money in play and you want to bet a team to win, so you have a couple approaches here. Arkansas is going to play enough games if they advance in the College World Series where you could just bet Arkansas game to game and probably create winnings that will be comparable to this. And if they get to the final series, depending on who they play, you can bet them there too. But if you want a team and just sweat them through the, however many games this is going to go, I still think it's Arkansas. I still think they're being mispriced, sort of like a classic situation where you kind of know, I think, what a team's ceiling is coming into a season. There are times in the season where they achieve that, but for the most part, they don't. They just underachieve, and you're waiting for them to turn that corner. Not altogether dissimilar from like Chiefs middle of the NFL season when they play very poorly. They end up turning it around. They make the AFC Championship game. Probably should have gone to the Super Bowl. Bengals have that comeback. We can think of a lot of other sort of teams mid-season where the ceiling is high. Honestly, the Celtics in the NBA season, their metrics were like this is the best team in the league, and their record was terrible. And you're like waiting for them to turn it around. Well, the way the college baseball season works, maybe there just weren't enough games, honestly, for Arkansas to do that. Played very poorly to end the year, didn't win a game in the SEC tournament. And so they came into this tournament with about the lowest possible rating they could ever have. This was a team that was consensus #1 team in the country last year, did lose some players to the draft, but brought back a ton of talent. Preseason expectations, the coaching staff has talked about this. All of the players basically felt like incredible like anxiety, honestly, because they were all expected to take these massive leaps forward. This was supposed to be like some kind of super team, basically, and it just never materialized. It didn't work out that way, but it's not like the players all got injured or, they all forgot how to play baseball or something, or, a COVID outbreak. None of this happened. It's just didn't quite manifest itself in the type of season that they had hoped to have. But I think the ceiling was always still there. So it's been really interesting in this tournament. You could really argue Arkansas has had by far the best wins so far, aside from Notre Dame over Tennessee is the best singular series win, of course. But Arkansas, something some of these teams haven't had to do is win on the road yet. Stanford has hosted every single game that they've played so far in the tournament. That's one of the things that getting the 2 seed does for you. I don't think there's any other team actually. A&M, I think, has hosted every other game that they played so far, too. The ability to go to somewhere else and then win those games and look really good doing it. I mean, that's Arkansas against Oklahoma State and those crazy. That was the best win anybody had in the first round, those high-scoring games against Oklahoma State. And then to go to North Carolina, who was basically the hottest team in the country, who was not Tennessee, and sweep them in 2 games at their place. I think it has to count for something, basically. Meanwhile, you have a team like Stanford, and I have Stanford futures. I hate Stanford. I'm going to be dying to bet against. I'm betting Arkansas in game 1 against them in that bottom pod. So, just haven't looked great. Should have lost to Texas State. Probably should have lost to UConn. And now they're going on the road to play Arkansas. It's just, again, current form, basically. I think Arkansas is finally reaching their ceiling. You can choose to bet this in a bunch of different ways. You can't really rolling parlay this because it's double elimination. You'd have to guess when the loss was going to happen in order to play it successfully. But if you want a team to bet, of the futures I have bet, I have the first, second, and fourth favorites to win this tournament and bet them all when there were at least 64 or 16 teams left. I don't even like that I have Stanford, and I love that I have Arkansas. And I actually honestly think they should maybe be the favorite to win the tournament at this point, just because of I know why they're being rated this way, because the regular season, how they closed, and the market won't correct itself that fast, even if they start playing well. But they are playing that well, and the market seems like honestly struggling to catch up to that. They were a dog to North Carolina in that series, and I just think we still haven't necessarily they're the same price as Notre Dame to win the tournament. I just don't think that's realistic. So do like Arkansas a lot. We have their futures. If you don't, there's another avenue you can take. Should be a really, really fun. It's about a 10-day event. Starts on Friday. Arkansas and Stanford play afternoon on Saturday, which is probably the game of the first round, and then double elimination from there. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be betting on a lot of these games.
It's the fun part is, well, this would be true in most college baseball tournaments because they're very random. Could make a pretty easy case for all 8. I'm trying of the 8, who do I think won't win?
Well, A&M bought their whole team, so
I don't. NIL rules. Yeah, I mean the back end of the market's priced pretty well. I don't like Auburn, Oklahoma, or A&M as much as the other 5, but those 5, yeah. But if I had to pick a team to win the tournament right now, easily Arkansas would be my favorite team.
Woo pig.